Gene, so I wanted to ask you about programmatic TV. We've been talking about it for a number of years. Big opportunity now around CTV and OTT as consumption has really risen. Tell us about those opportunities, the tools that you have, and sort of the opportunity to employ header bidding, how that might be part of the mix.
Sure. Thanks, Andy. I think what we're excited about is the evolution that we're seeing right now on supply technology for publishers. It gives the publishers a more modular approach to monetization. And then in turn, that gives our clients more opportunities to purchase that media. So starting to see header bidding breaking into OTT and CTV in a really meaningful way is exciting, because it means that that premium inventory isn't always going to be locked up in direct IOs because of technical challenges. There's now an answer to that, which gives us the flexibility to buy in an RTB scenario in the future or on a direct IO, depending on what the client's needs are. Clients are looking for a holistic approach to media buying where they can have an audience approach that isn't siloed into different types of media, that really spans the landscape. And they're also looking for an answer to the decline in inventory that we're seeing in some of the traditional media. So OTT and CTV is a great place to find reach and to be able to target audiences. And for a long time, we were really stuck doing the direct IOs, but now I think as header bidding and gets into CTV, it's going to break that open and enable publishers to do yield management the way they manage display, which is really exciting for our clients, because when you're buying from the perspective of addressability, the idea of needing to be locked into a direct IO isn't as important anymore, because you're not buying the content as much at this point as you're buying really the audiences. So there's a couple of different flavors when we think about buying audiences, and particularly in quality video. It's a little bit different than it is in the traditional programmatic perspective. So we look at it as our clients will come to the table with first-party data where they want to have a really unique relationship with a publisher that also has some first-party data. And they want to figure out what is their audience overlap, and then have a direct relationship with each other to be able to transact on just those users that they've identified between the two of them in a safe place. So that's one way to do it. And I think particularly that is going to be dependent on the ability for a client to scale in that way, is going to be dependent on the publisher or the media provider having a known logged in user at the time that advertising is present. Sometimes those things don't exist together, particularly in traditional media, but more so they do exist more so when you're looking at CTV and OTT and more of these digital assets. So that's one chunk of it. And then the other chunk is HVAs, our high value audiences. And so this is where we'll work with the client to understand who their target audience is, and then bring in other data sets to make that, to extrapolate that and make that larger, and we'll target those audiences. So targeting those in CTV and OTT, there's ways that it exists now that we tap into, technologies that exist today that we can tap into, but there's also an evolution of trying to do that more efficiently for our clients, and we're working on those solutions. And then the last chunk of addressability is really that third-party audience segment, and there's a lot of opportunity there as well. Making a decision between what type of audience you're going to target is going to depend on what publishers you're working with, what their footprint looks like, what their addressability looks like, and then what your overall goals are as a client, because there's different cost implications and a different level of effort for utilizing those different types of data sets.
Finally, I wanted to ask about what you've seen in terms of our industry. We've been talking about for so long, this advanced TV world, how it's been impacted or perhaps accelerated by this whole COVID pandemic time.
Sure. I mean, it's a really interesting time where we're seeing consumer behavior shift. And even if consumer behavior obviously shifting, you and I are both, we're at home, we're on our computers, on our TVs, on our phones, in a really different way than we were before because of our environment. But even if that consumer shift hadn't happened, COVID-19 and the pandemic has really launched some uncertainties for advertisers as to how to respond in this time, how to respond appropriately to their consumers, and then are their consumers ready to interact with them? So that also changes the way that they're buying media. So the way that we were looking at media partners in the past has shifted, and that comes back to having more options down the line is going to be better, since we're not necessarily buying in the same traditional ways we were in the past.